Ready to transform your marriage in less than a week? Join the free 6-day Intimacy Breakthrough Challenge and discover how small daily actions create extraordinary connection with your spouse. Start today at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/6days. That's oneextraordinarymarriage.com/6days.
From Naples, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the HUG hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about how pornography systematically destroys the intimate connection between spouses, creating barriers to genuine emotional and sexual intimacy in your marriage.
And Matt and Heather Cook had this to say about porn. They say porn isn't harmless. Research shows that watching porn leads to a decrease in marital satisfaction, emotional separation, and can double the likelihood of divorce. No website, video, or images are worth damaging your marriage. We're going to be talking about that in today's episode, but first we start every single One Extraordinary Marriage episode with a hug. And a hug is an opportunity to just celebrate what the two of you are doing, how you're transforming your marriage. And this hug comes from an Instagram DM we received from a couple who attended the Life Family 6 Pillars of Intimacy Masterclass. So we got to actually see this couple when we were in Austin.
Yeah, Life Family Church, big shout out to you guys in Austin, in that southwest, South Central Texas, whatever it is over there.
You have no idea about the geography of Texas.
I don't know the
But
geography.
it sounds really cute as you're trying to describe it.
Love you guys. An amazing, amazing time with you.
So this couple said, "Thank you for taking the time to briefly speak with us today. We truly appreciate your podcast and your openness to share your life's journey. In 2017, we were in a rut. We had 2 young kids and life was lifing. A gradual slide into being roommates had started. I found the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast and listened to my first episode, number 354, while jogging. A light bulb went off. When I got home, I played it for my wife. Your spouse is only getting the leftovers really hit home for both of us. Over the next few years, I listened to all the back catalog and learned a lot. Specifically, be intentional. We listened, have purchased some books, shared your resources, and shared episodes, mainly 140, which I know is scheduling sex, with friends who might be facing those challenges. It was nice to shake your hands and tell you both. You've made a real impact on me as a husband, my wife, and on our marriage."
Yeah.
It's always so special when we get to meet you guys face to face, but more importantly, to celebrate the transformation that you've done when you do get intentional and take action.
Yeah, and it was so wonderful meeting this couple and the joy and to see, for us, it's just so wonderful. And for this couple, listening since 2017, been part of the One Family now for 8 years.
Oh my gosh, yeah. 8.
And it's just mind-blowing to us to be a part of your lives, but know that your marriages impact Elisa and I too. And that's the truth. Like when we see you and we get to experience life with you, we don't forget you. Interestingly enough, episode 354 was awake sex.
That is interesting.
So that was the first episode he had listened to and then shared with his wife. So I love it because I'm sure in the throes of lifing, as was said there, like probably sex was happening at night and you're just sort of falling asleep.
So just out of curiosity, what episode number is Stop Serving the Leftovers? Because he also mentions that one.
Yeah.
We'll find that one. You find it while I'm just jumping into today's episode. But because that's another one that it's interesting that he actually mentioned it there because I found myself repeating that episode and mentioning it just in conversation to a lot of my coaching clients recently about leftovers and what it looks like when you're giving your spouse what's left over.
With leftover. And what we talk a lot about when we are live is making your marriage a priority, putting that marriage above all things. That was episode 439.
Okay. So just in that. In the 3s and 4s. In the 3s and 4s. Well, jumping into today's episode, it's been a whirlwind of, the last 2.5, 3 weeks. We've had 3 different weekends, 3 different churches, different couples all over. And ultimately what it boils down to, it doesn't matter what what location we're in, there are so many marriages that are dealing with the same challenges. So you might think, oh, we're different over here, we're here. But ultimately, marriage is the same.
Yeah, and I just want to put a word out. If you're a pastor, if you're an elder at a church, and you would like to bring this message to you, you can send it directly to me, Tony at oneextraordinarymarriage.com. Reach out. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to see if we can bring the 6 pillars to your church, to your community. And do know it's not just your church. There are people that will travel. I mean, we had people in Austin traveling, an hour and a half. We got,
couple hours.
Yeah, people in Tulsa, a couple hours coming to these events. And it's making a huge impact. So if that's something that you'd like to do, reach out to me. I'd love to have that conversation.
One of the things that has come up these last few weeks, actually a topic got highlighted at I think just about every event. And it's one that we've talked about over the last 15 years, but it's interesting how it comes up every time we speak live. And I think specifically because of the high level of vulnerability that Tony brings to this topic when we are in front of an audience. And we've discussed it here on the podcast, but as we were leaving these last couple of churches, Tony looks over at me and he goes, I don't think we've talked about this recently. And I think it's something that we need to talk about. And what was interesting is that he said that on a Sunday. And then I had coaching sessions on Monday and Tuesday where I'm having this conversation. And you guys know Power of 3 here at One Extraordinary Marriage. If we hear it once and then it starts getting repeated, we have to bring it back up. And, Tony mentioned it at the very top of this episode. We're talking about pornography in your marriage. The impact that pornography has on the viewer. And I will say from the get-go, it's not always men that are viewing pornography.
Nope.
The impact that pornography has on your spouse. And the impact that pornography has on your marriage, because viewing pornography is not an innocent act. It has ramifications. And this isn't just something hypothetical that Tony and I, theorize or read in a book that pornography is damaging to a marriage. We've actually lived it. And it's not just our story. Weekly, it may be daily, some weeks, I sit across from couples in coaching sessions who are struggling with the fallout of pornography in their marriage. It's the lack of connection when they're actually having sex. Some of them struggle with just straight up a lack of interest in having sex. Some of the fallout ends up being the inability to orgasm, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of guilt, shame, unworthiness. And none of that collectively or bits and pieces is a recipe for a healthy sexual intimacy pillar. You can't have all that stuff going on and be able to look at this particular pillar and probably multiple pillars in your marriage and be like, yeah, we're rocking it. Because I will tell you, if pornography is in your marriage, you got a lot of cracks in your sexual intimacy pillar. And I will actually defend that position till my dying day.
And when we say this too, this also includes and is not limited to erotica. Back in the day, even, reading, like for myself, penthouse letters, things of that nature. Listening, audio can still have that same impact on you. You don't need to view it. You can just listen to it. And so we believe here at One Extraordinary Marriage that this is a detrimental act. It's a selfish act. I will say it because I've been there. That deteriorates that partnership, that bond, that closeness and connection between you and your spouse. I was introduced to pornography when I was 12 years old with my buddies. It was at I think I was in a Boy Scout type of a deal, and at the place where we would attend, I just remember, and this is just me, I just remember a hedge and then a fence. And in between the hedge and the fence is where guys would store wherever they found it, because again, it was different ages, right? Like my buddies in my neighborhood were 2 years and 4 years older than me. Most of the guys were all older than me. Those were my best friends, were 2 and 4 years older than me. And so I just remember seeing it there. I then remember seeing it and finding it in my father's closet. I remember my dad having back in the day, like the old satellite systems, like massive satellite dish, like huge. And I learned how to break that code and everything and get into XXX and view this stuff. And that was at 12 years old, 13, 14, 15, throughout most of my high school days. Went into college, met Elisa, still viewing it here and there. And then it was brought into the marriage. Mm-hmm. And as many of you know, Elisa and I were not followers of Christ or followers of Jesus in our early years of marriage. That happened in 2000 when we both came to Christ in different ways. But it was still a few years after that where I was still struggling with this. Our oldest, Alex, was a year old. Elisa and him were sitting in our living room, and there was a hallway and then a door right before the living room that went into our garage. Mm-hmm. And in the garage is where I kept my computer. And on this particular day, I remember walking down that hallway. Elisa and Alex were in the living room, probably watching TV or something, whatever it may have been. And I remember just making this left to the garage, knowing that I needed something to numb myself from whatever I was dealing with at that time in my life. And I remember as I was going into the garage, about to turn on the computer, about to view pornography on my screen once again, I heard the audible voice of God say, "It is finished." I did not turn on my computer. I turned around. I came into the living room and had to confess to Elisa that I had been viewing pornography. Elisa knew of my pornography viewing at different times. At this particular time, I don't think you did.
I don't think so. And I was also, we had a 1-year-old. I mean, this is 21 years ago. So I'm not sure. I mean, in all honesty, I'm not sure how engaged with you I was at that point in time, just being a new mom.
Yeah, there's disconnect. There are cracks in our pillars. But I remember just going in and telling her and going, I'm done. Like, I am not going to view pornography again. And I have not looked. There's one instance, actually, and I'll share that here. Elisa was about to leave, and she was leaving for Ohio to visit her parents with Alex. And I told her I would let her know that if I were to view pornography, I would let her know. She was gone for this week's period, probably about 4 days in. I don't remember exactly what it was. I began to look real quick, and I was like, nope, I am done with this. I called Elisa. I heard the pain in her voice. I heard the gosh, Tony, you broke my trust again. Mm-hmm. You've shattered the dream that I had. And at that point in time, it was finished. Mm-hmm. I've never, ever picked up pornography, looked at pornography, yes, it comes across my screen because I search stuff around sexual intimacy all the time. We were talking about, but I do not sit. I do not I'm like, let's move through this. Mm-hmm. So it has been 21 years now since I have viewed pornography. And I can say for a fact, I'm not saying that it would all turned around, our sexual intimacy and our emotional intimacy and everything turned around all in a minute, but I will say not viewing it has definitely changed the trajectory of our sexual intimacy over the years.
100%. And I would actually say it was probably, and we'll talk a little bit about this here throughout this episode, it was probably a 4-year healing period. And I'm just sharing that because somebody asked me in a coaching session earlier this week, and I had to think, okay, what was kind of the timeline with this? And I couldn't really wrap my head around it. I actually told this gal, I'm like, I think I blacked out those years. But what I remember as you and I are having this conversation is that was when Alex was 1. And then, we went through our journey of loss. And then we did the 60-day sex challenge. And then it was when we were starting to write the book the following year. So that would have been 2008, 2009.
No, it would have been it would have been years.
The blog, 2010 or 2009 was when that was happening. And I remember having the conversation about your business trips. When you would travel to the East Coast.
Yeah, when I was working.
When you were working and you'd go to bars and kind of see what you could get away with. And so it dawned on me that it was actually...
And that was actually years prior to us even having children.
Right, but I remember the distinct moment when you told me about that. And that was really, I think, from there was actually the final, because that was when the secrets had all come out
Yeah.
about behavior. And I'm not landing on, it's not the point of this particular episode, but somebody had asked me this week, they're like, Lisa, how long did it take you to heal? And I'm like, well, from confession, now I actually have this timeline that from confession to, really feeling like I knew everything. And it wasn't like I was like looking for stuff. It was just your revelations as you would bring it out, was about a 4.5, probably 5 year period of
healing takes time. If you're willing to walk it and go through with it, would you, Elise and I, if you were to take us back in that moment, which we weren't podcasting at that point in time.
So you can't actually go back and listen.
I think you would hear a lot of hurt. I think you would hear a lot of, I don't trust you right now. You'd probably hear a lot of like, well, I'm trying, I'm trying to rebuild that trust with you. So know that pornography kills intimacy, and yet the healing process can be a miraculous journey.
But it's a journey. And it's interesting. Last week, recently on Instagram, we had asked the question, has your marriage been impacted by pornography? And we had almost 1,200 responses to this question, where 35% of the respondents said, yes, it has. Let that sink for a minute. Over a third of all marriages that were represented by the answers have been impacted by pornography. And then the follow-up question said, if you answered yes, what's been the impact on you, your spouse, or your marriage? And this is where things get raw. Husband would consume, feel guilt and shame, and project it on me. As a wife, it made me feel less than, and has impacted or affected our sexual intimacy. It's broken the trust in our marriage. I'm so disappointed in him.
Low self-esteem led to infidelity. I was coerced into acts seen in porn. That is a common phrase that I have heard over the years.
Distorted views of sex and intimacy. It made me insecure. He was wanting or expecting things that weren't realistic. I destroyed my marriage.
It almost broke us. I'm not attached to him while he's
attracted.
I'm not attracted to him while he's attracted to this. When we have sex, does he want me, or is he thinking of the images?
I don't orgasm anymore. Led to our divorce. See, so many people, as this addiction, I won't even just necessarily go to addiction, because I know some of you are like, I don't know if it's an addiction, Elisa. Okay, this behavior, let me just soften it up a little bit for you. This behavior isn't something that you do that doesn't impact anybody else. It does impact. If a third of the marriages that responded to that question have dealt with this, then this is something that this isn't helping marriages. Okay, a third of the marriages have had those feelings in them. Think about what that's doing for the emotional and the sexual intimacy. I would also have to think that you've got physical intimacy, because a wife or a husband who knows their spouse is viewing porn is likely to pull back from the touches. I don't want you to touch me. I think your touches are motivated by you wanting sex. There could be financial craziness going on too, because if you're looking at that and then you start paying to look at that and all of those kinds of things, how many tens of thousands of dollars might you waste because this behavior, if you don't want to call it an addiction, is getting out of control in your life?
And I'll be a little harsher than Elisa. It is an addiction. I just let's call a spade a spade. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're viewing this on a daily basis, there is addiction attached to it.
It's a dopamine hit. Like when Tony was talking about walking down that hallway, I don't necessarily know. I wasn't in his head, but maybe you weren't trying to numb yourself. Maybe you just needed a dopamine rush.
I don't think we knew what that was back there, but I think I was trying to numb myself and get myself into a place where I didn't have to think about the realities of what the world I was living in.
And that's the case for some, and for some it's just the high. Right? But we can't, extraordinary couples, extraordinary marriages have a responsibility to go against the norm and against what is, okay or acceptable, and take a stand for marriage and what's viewed in marriage as being just between husband and wife. We're going to talk about how to take action around this after this break.
Dear old work platform, it's not you, it's us. Actually, it is you. Endless onboarding? Constant IT bottlenecks? We've had enough. We need a platform that just gets us. And to be honest, we've met someone new. They're called Monday.com, and it was love at first onboarding. Their beautiful dashboards, their customizable workflows got us floating on a digital cloud 9. So no hard feelings, but we're moving on. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
With us brand new to Southwest Florida, trying to figure out what our next home is going to be is so much easier with Redfin. Whether you're looking to buy or rent your next place, you need the Redfin app. Redfin makes it fun to search all the homes and apartments in your neighborhood. We've been able to look at so many different homes in the area, really getting a feel for what's here and what we like. It's been fun to search and ask the questions, where do we want to live? What are homes like here? What amenities do we really want? And if you find a place you love, Redfin makes it easy to go see it in person. Just schedule the tour right from the app. Plus, if you're looking to sell, Redfin agents know how to get you the best price possible for your home. That's because they close twice as many deals as other agents. And with a listing fee as low as 1%, Redfin's fees are half of what others often charge, which means you'll have more money to put towards your next home. So whether you're looking to buy, rent, or sell, Redfin's got you covered. Download the Redfin app to get started. We're back, and we're talking about what to do if or after pornography has impacted your marriage. And, you know, as Tony said, it's a journey, and having this revelation, I mean, today was the first time as we're recording this episode that I realized that it really was like a 5-ish year journey for me and ultimately for us, because getting the restoration, didn't just come when you said, I'm done, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then you called and you said, okay, no, I'm really done. I'm not going to do this anymore. It was stepping into this place of what are the actions going to be over time. Because, you know, let's face it, folks, we say a lot of things to our spouses and sometimes we don't follow through. Sometimes we're not as committed to the process as we think we are. And just some steps to start thinking about, you know, what this could look like for the two of you. And let me say, a healing process in a marriage is both. It's being supportive. It's understanding the emotions. It's working through it. It's getting help, external help if you need it. But can
I say one thing here before you jump in? I'm going to talk to all my husbands real quick. Hey, guys, you may think you're the only one. And this is the place the devil wants to keep you. So I'm going to tell you right now, you're not the only one. You need to get help. You need to get vulnerable. You need to get open. You got to get open. You got to get honest, and you got to get transparent about what's going on. And you need to do that. And you need to tell somebody. You need to break. You need to break the curse. I'm going to say that. You got to break that, and you need to step through. Because too often we want to sit in our little place, in our little corner, and think we're the only one. And guess what? You're not. Want to just break it. I'm not going to mince words here. If you're listening, that you want breakthrough. You want something different. And so if you want something different, you're going to have to do something differently. And I'm telling you, you're going to have to reveal it. Now, for some of you, it may be to your wife, like I did. For some of you, you're going to go like, man, there's a Celebrate Recovery in our church. Or maybe there's some other, program that you've heard of or know of, or a buddy who broke pornography. I need you to get off your butt, stop looking at the phone, and I need you to text that person. I need you to call that person. I need you to get in front of that person. Because if you don't, you're going to keep doing the same thing you've been doing. And that is the definition of insanity.
I love when he's so passionate. This is an area that we feel very strongly about. And Tony and I know what's on the other side of healing. And I think that's part of the reason why we feel so strongly about this. And for some of you, you may have to, start with just a digital detox. You may be going down, and I've told husbands this in coaching sessions. I'm like, you need not quite an analog phone, but just about as close to that as you can get. It makes phone calls.
Yep.
It does not have access to the internet. It does not allow you to get on any of the social media apps. You are like, I can call you and I can get calls.
Think about it for all you old school folks. Think about your old flip phone. That's about it, man. You flip that phone, you dial the number, you can text from it, call it good, move on.
I remember hearing the story of a couple, I want to say like old school basketball, like celebrity types who have, gosh, I wish I could remember it now. It's just this kind of story in my head. They're just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want the temptations. You know, you get to a place where you rebuild trust through total transparency. Trust is not rebuilt when there are still secrets. It's part of the reason why even having the revelation today that our trust was not fully rebuilt until Tony revealed everything about even the work trips that he'd gone on. And was able to shed that himself so that he could be fully vulnerable, known by me, and then we could work on it together. That's part of the reason why I'm like, oh, this really was a 5-year thing, right? What does it look like to give up the passwords and, you know, the devices and show if you're the one who broke the trust? Like, you come to your spouse and you offer this. You don't wait for them to demand it, because then they feel like they don't want to be your parent. They want to be your partner. So when you come to them and say, look, I know this has happened. I am going to give you full access to my devices, phones, passwords, what accounts, whatever it is. And I'm going to work on my reactions when you ask to see it or when you want to look at those things, because we're both rebuilding the trust in our marriage. It's a much different thing. If you're the one that broke the trust and you come forward first, it does go better. And it's a smoother ride than if your spouse has to keep asking, what about this? What about that? What about this? It just transforms it because you're choosing.
Yeah. And I would say if that's a spot you're in and you need somebody alongside you, Elisa has done this for years with couples. I mean, we had a couple come up to us who had some massive trust broken in their marriage and came up to us at a recent event, and just the tears. And it's been about a 5-year journey for them too, to getting back to this spot. But I mean, it just brought us all to tears to see the restoration. And so if that's you, I would highly suggest that you apply for coaching. You can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/coaching. There's no obligation. But again, you got to break the curse. You got to step through the door. You have to make a change.
Some of you are going to need to redefine what specifically sexual intimacy, but what intimate connection looks like in your marriage. How you're going to define this, what this is going to look like with transparency and communication and building the emotional intimacy and being able to be vulnerable and share where you're at, or if you're trying to numb yourself or whatever that looks like. And that goes into this next one that says getting to the place where you identify and address the root causes, like understanding what drives the pornography. I can't tell you how many times I'll, have a first or second session with a couple and start asking, well, when do you have a tendency to look at porn? What was going on the last time that you looked? Like, I don't want to just know that you looked at it. Like, we've got to understand what are the behaviors and where is that coming from? And we actually did a masterclass with Frank Rich, who's a phenomenal expert in helping men break free, specifically of pornography addiction. And you can check out what that is at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/pornfree. But ultimately, the two of you are going to need to create a healing plan together.
Yep.
Not just say it's over, but what's that going to look like? Like, Tony and I had to work on our sexual intimacy. We had to have conversations about what I felt comfortable doing in that season, because I had a lot of insecurity. In a
sexual, like with sexual intercourse and everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Like, when Tony would make suggestions and I would say, I'm not comfortable with that. And to not have it be a place of anger, right? What was it going to look like to have the transparency aspect of that healthy plan? How were we going to engage with one another that it wasn't just about sex? So I didn't feel like an object, but I felt like his lover, right? Like all of this.
And you are now.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Years later, I'm telling you, the pain, the hurt, the frustration, the darkness of that time. I could probably go right back to it if I wanted to. And yet, I will say, years later, like, Elisa, even last night, she was like, because she now writes down, like, every time we are sexually intimate.
Well, context.
You just put like a little check.
I do put a little, just in my daily journal. So I check.
Yeah. So she comes out last night and she's like, guess what? And I'm like, what? She's like, we were sexually intimate 10 times this month. And I was like, wow. And if I look back on those 10 times, I'm like, they were all really, really good. Like, we were truly engaged with one another. Like, maybe one or two of them were just more of like, all right, well, we're in a new city, like, and we're speaking, and we have a little bit of time in the hotel room, and so it doesn't need to be this long lovemaking session. But I will tell you that that's where the beauty of marriage is. We work through the tough stuff. We dig in. Together we dig in. It's not this linear path. We all want to just be like, we got married, woohoo, great. Let's just like love will last us till the day one of us, sees Jesus. It's not that journey. I wish, but it's not. We live in a sinful, fallen world. But I will say, when you overcome and you can get yourself to a place of forgiving your spouse for what they did, for releasing, saying like, I messed up and I'm willing to repent and I'm willing to say, hey, I did stuff that hurt you. Please forgive me. Like, that's part of the process that gets us to this place where if sexual intimacy is such a big part of our lives and this pillar is so big in our marriage, then it makes it to a place where we can go, wow, that's amazing. So the journey and that healing plan together can take you to a place you never thought possible.
Yeah. I don't know if 20 years ago I could imagine where we'd be today. And that our ability to talk about pornography and its impact on marriage would actually set so many other people on a different path. It's just getting to this place of saying this week, what are we going to do? If this is in our marriage, if it's been in our marriage and we still have unresolved stuff, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. You know what? We love you guys. I can't say it enough. We come behind these microphones and sharing where we've been, where we're going. Sometimes it's the past, like we just talked about today, and yet the mission here at One Extraordinary Marriage is to impact one marriage. And I pray that what was said today impacted one marriage. Maybe it was you. Maybe it's somebody you're going to pass this on to. I don't know who it's going to be. We don't know who it's going to be. But know that being part of the one family, you are making a difference, and you can make a difference in your own marriage. And some of you are going to have to step up to the plate and go, you know what? Enough's enough. Some of you are going to have to go and call somebody out and say, enough's enough. Our marriage is worth it. And yet we got to do something different. How you get to that point is up to you. Know that we're here. We're here cheering you on. We're here to encourage you. We have resources for you. So get involved. Take part. Do something. Because doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. And guess what? You don't need to be there anymore. So go make this a week where you can stand upon, like I have been able to stand upon, and go, something drastically changed. And I can look back and go, that's when it happened. And your testimony will have breakthrough for others. But you got to start. So get started this week. You guys have yourselves a great one. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.